Now going over to the third-party House Leader, the member for Saanich North and the Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's wonderful to see you in the chair again. And I rise today, or I sit today, to speak to Bill 7, Tenancy Statutes Amendment Act, from my office here in the Legislature. I'd like to start today by acknowledging Mr. Beeds. Mr. Beeds is an individual in the town of Sydney that many people who live on the Saanich Peninsula would know. He's passed away recently, and he spent a lot of time on Beacon Avenue in Sydney, beating beautiful pieces of art and selling them there. And Mr. Beeds is going to be missed in Sydney. He's a homeless gentleman who had his fair share of struggles, more than his fair share of struggles. But every day he sat on the street and shared his kindness with people who passed by, sometimes not even looking up, but just acknowledging every set of feet that passed by him with a have a nice day, or have a great day, have a wonderful day. And Mr. Beeds is going to be missed in the town of Sydney. I'd like to thank thank you for the opportunity to speak to this bill. And I'd like to acknowledge the Attorney General for his effective work in the past as a minister. And I'm thankful that he is now holding the housing portfolio and responsible now for developing programs and policy to help what is a very challenging housing market. The housing market, as many British Columbians know, is red hot. The Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver says that the market is heating up so fast that, quote, home sales in the region doubled between January and February and have climbed by more than 70% since last year. The board revealed that February sales in BC totaled 3,727, a 73% increase from the 2,150 sales recorded the year before, and a 56% spike from the 2,300 homes sold the month before. In a rare move, the Victoria Real Estate Board said that more work is required to make sure housing prices were brought back down after it says the provincial government had failed to improve the market conditions. Demand suppression measures have not worked, and their failure to moderate housing prices in our community has only exacerbated the pressure. The supply was constrained 10 years ago, but now it's historically low levels. Speaking to the desire to have more supply been brought into the market, as the member was speaking before me. But it's not just the real estate market that's hot. The rental market has also seen some changes over the last few years. We've seen vacancy rates increased in Metro Vancouver and in Victoria, while in other markets like Vernon and Nanaimo, the rental market is much, much tighter. We've seen over the last number of years policies that have been focused on supply, and also policies that have been focused on demand. We saw the speculation and vacancy tax that was to address a superheated real estate market. And we've learned that actually addressing this market and these challenges is going to take more than just tinkering around the edges. Ensuring that housing is more than just units tabulated by accountants and a measure of success or failure counted by politicians and bureaucrats. We have to focus on what I think the member from Sakine was talking about, meaning homes for people who live in our communities. And I think that this does, to get us out of a supply and demand kind of conversation about housing, requires a systemic shift in our approach. I like the type of language around talking about homes for people. And as a participant in the rental housing task force, we worked very hard to find the balance that the member from Skeena was talking about between the rights of landlords and tenants. The reality that every landlord needs a tenant and every tenant needs a landlord. And that this is an incredibly important relationship that the rental housing task force that I sat on with the member from the Vancouver West End and the member from Courtney-Comox, we did that work together. And I participated in that work because I believed that the greatest value a house offers individuals and communities is exactly what the member for Keene was talking about, and that's as a home. And people say, well, this is obvious, Dulles, and no doubt that this is about homes. But unfortunately, we refer so often when we're talking about housing, we talk about units, 114,000 units, 10,000 units, 5 units. We're not talking the language around housing in the political sphere here, in the political landscape, is not about finding homes for people or creating homes for people. See, it's about homes are about the stability of individuals and communities. It's about the safety of individuals and communities. It's about creating a safe and stable base for individuals to then be able to fully participate in their communities. I heard a CBC story recently, the local CBC Victoria, homeless residents here Victoria, who started a podcast. And what really struck me in that story was the comments from the host of the podcast on how exhausting it is to be homeless, the lack of stability, the lack of safety, the lack of security. Always having to keep one eye on your belongings because there's no safe place to store them. Always trying to protect your space must be absolutely exhausting. So exhausting that it becomes the entire day's work, the entire day's effort is to just protect your space and just to protect your belongings. That speaks to the security and safety that a home creates. Yes, we can create units as governments, but I think that once we shift our focus away from the conversation being about a housing unit or 114,000 housing units, and we start talking about what it means to help create a home for somebody, now we're moving in the right direction. The rental housing task force is one of the more positive experiences that I've had as an MLA. Not because it was easy work, but it was rewarding work. It was a joy to work with the members from the West End and Courtney-Comox to navigate these challenging issues and to put forward for government a series of recommendations that they have put their mind to, that the government has put their mind to putting into legislation and starting to work on. And part of the reward, of course, of that work is to see when government trusts the quality of that work and begins to start to legislate it. And I think that that is one of the most positive aspects of the job that I've had here as an MLA. And it's a tribute to our now Minister of Finance for her foresight to be inclusive and her trust in me to add value to this work. And so I raise my hands to the Minister of Finance for welcoming me into that residential or the rental housing task force. Unfortunately, I think as the member previously stated, this debate has featured too much blame. There's no doubt that policies from the past have impacted the housing market and that this bill that we're looking at today is a good bill. However, I encourage the minister responsible for housing, the Attorney General, to go further, to reach into his history as a housing advocate, his past his experience as a BC NDP politician, to make the systemic changes that are needed while this bill is making important changes to protect renters from illegal renovictions, provide some more stability for residents of mobile home parks, capping rent increases to provide more stability for renters, and increase the capacity of the enforcement and penalties. These changes are important to protect homefulness for our residents in the COVID-19 times, but also in general, once we've passed COVID-19. We all benefit from greater stability that homes provide our family, our friends, and our neighbors. However, while these changes have an impact for many British Columbians, the government needs to go further with comprehensive changes that are needed to ensure British Columbians can benefit from the stability of the home. I strongly encourage the Minister and the Cabinet to get the Housing Hub project financing program back on track. This is an important program that supports the missing middle. Our housing programs need to be a full suite, from housing solutions, housing the homeless, to low to moderate income, to moderate and middle income homes. It needs to be a full and comprehensive program, not just focused, falling into the trap of focusing on a singular demographic within the full range. We need to be developing programs that are covering the full range. And that's why that financing program to finance the capital builds of projects for the missing middle is so important, and why it must not be abandoned at this point. I'm thankful that this is the first bill that we're debating today, and we're debating in this part of this session. It's a tribute to the collaborative work accomplished in the 42nd Parliament that's being fulfilled now. It's a tribute to the member from the West End, our Deputy Speaker, who has always been a strong advocate for renters. And I look forward to supporting this legislation. With that, I'll just stay in my seat and thank the Speaker for the opportunity to speak on Bill 7. Thank you.